Hi everyone, I'm so glad you clicked on this video today. We're obviously really sad that we can't be with you in person, but as soon as we can, we will be. So over the last month or so, we've been looking at the promises of God, haven't we? And I thought we'd have a little test this morning, get your brains working. I want to see how many of the promises you can remember. There'll be a timer on the screen that will come up and count down from 10. Let's see how many you can remember. Let's see if you've got them all. Now, we're looking at a new promise this week, and it comes from Philippians chapter 4, verse 19. And it says this: God will supply your every need according to his glorious riches in Christ Jesus. And that's a great promise, isn't it? That God will supply our every need. So we're going to think about that a little bit more, but first let's have a story in the Bible that shows that this promise was real. We're going to look at the story of Elijah, and this is going to show us that God provided for him.
So a long time before Jesus was walking around on the earth, Israel had been split into two kingdoms, one in the south named Judah and one in the north named Israel. Now King Ahab was the king of Israel, and he was a terrible king, like really bad. Maybe he was just angry because his dad, King Omri, had given him a silly name that made him sound like a wrestler, but that's not really an excuse, is it? King Omri also had a terrible name, and he wasn't so bad. Oh no, wait, he was also a really terrible king, as was his brother Zimri. I'll zimni you in the face if you worship God. And his brother Elah. And his dad Baasha. I'll batter you over the head if you worship God. And his brother Nadab. I float like a butterfly and pinch like a crab, so you better listen to me, King Nadab. And his dad Jeroboam. I'm King Jeroboam, and I'll worship false idols faster than you can look me up on Google Chrome. And well, you kind of get the point. They were all really evil. But Ahab did more evil in the eyes of God than all of them put together. He ruled so badly, and he set up altars to false gods just to annoy God. And he married a lady called Jezebel, who was a really bad influence on him, as if he wasn't evil enough. And she convinced him to start serving and worshipping a false storm god called Baal. And she encouraged him to do more to annoy God than any of the kings of Israel before him. They were a pretty evil combo. Now there was this chap named Elijah who came from a place called Tishba. Bless you! Pardon? I thought you sneezed. Oh no, sorry, I was just saying the name of the place that you're from. Oh right, Tishba. Bless you. No, I wasn't sneezing either. I was just saying the name of the place I'm from, which is Tishba. Bless you. So anyways, Elijah was a prophet, a man who really loved God and really listened out for what God was saying and really wanted to stand up for God's name. So he went up to evil King Ahab and he said, Oi, Ahab, you worship this god called Baal, and he's supposed to be a storm god, right? Who is this who shows the king such insolence? My name is Elijah, and I am from Tishba. Bless you! What? Oh, you thought I sneezed? Oh, that happens a lot, actually. It's quite funny. Anyways, I digress. Ahab, you worship Baal, don't you? Yes, I do. And he's supposed to be a storm god, right? A god who makes it rain? Mm-hmm. Well, as sure as my God, the God of Israel, lives, who I serve, the next few years are going to see a total drought, not a drop of rain or even dew unless I say otherwise. And Elijah was right. In the next few years, God made sure that it didn't rain and that not even dew fell on the ground. so Elijah could show Ahab that God was the one true God and that Baal wasn't real, because he'd be a pretty rubbish storm god if he couldn't even make it rain. Ahab had been made to look very silly by Elijah, which on top of his silly name made him look very, very silly indeed. And Ahab was very, very angry. God then told Elijah, "Get out of here, away from Ahab and fast. Head east and hide out at the Kerith ravine on the other side of the Jordan River. I'll provide for you with fresh water from the brook there that you can drink, and I've ordered the ravens to feed you." So Elijah obeyed God's orders. He went and camped out in the Kerith ravine on the other side of the river, and sure enough, ravens brought him his meals. They brought him bread and meat for breakfast. Bread and meat, my favourite! And they brought him more bread and meat at dinner time. Yes, more bread and meat, my favourite! And the brook that he was camped out by had some deliciously refreshing water for him to drink from, and Elijah knew that God had provided for him.
Now that was an amazing story, wasn't it? Elijah was living in a time of drought because of King Ahab, and a drought is when there is no rain in the entire land. And God told Elijah to go to a certain place and go by a brook, which is like a stream, and God would provide water for him and food for him. Now how did he provide that food? Oh yeah, that's right, God sent ravens to bring him food every morning and every night. And that's amazing, isn't it? A time in the whole history of Israel where there was no rain and no food, God provided for Elijah. And in the same way, God can provide for us. Now I first want to say that God is not like a wishing well. You don't pray to God and say, "Oh, I want the best car in the world," or "I want this PlayStation 5," or "I want all the money in the world," and God will give you it. That's not supplying our every need. Those are things that we want, aren't they? But God gives us what we need. And I remember when I was young, my family weren't the wealthiest. They didn't have lots of money, and there were times where we really struggled. But God helped us through that time. God provided everything we needed. We never once went without food. We never once went hungry or without drink. He provided what we needed at the time. It's not what we necessarily wanted. I'm sure we wanted a lot more than we had, but God gave us what we needed. And that's an amazing promise that we can count on. God doesn't promise that things are going to be easy. God doesn't promise that we're going to be celebrities. God doesn't promise that we're going to have lots of money. God doesn't promise that we're going to have the best car in the world. But He does promise to supply our every need. And just like Elijah was supplied with everything he needed, the food and water, God supplies us. God supplies us with everything that we need. God gives us what we need, not necessarily what we want, but what we need. There's been so many stories that I've heard for so many Christian friends of God providing for them, of God giving them special things at special times, just what they needed, whether it be food, whether it be water, whether it be, I don't know, just something that they really needed at that point in their life. God is amazing at giving us what we need at the right moment. But Elijah had to do something, didn't he, in that story? Elijah had to trust that God was going to send him water, that God was going to give him food by the ravens. It sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? The ravens. But God supplied him with those things, but Elijah had to trust. And in the same way, we have to trust in God. Our life can be really difficult sometimes. Our life can be tough for a long period of time, and you know, there's lots of Christians in the world that are really struggling right now. Struggling with not being able to get food on the table. Struggling with not being able to get clean drinking water even. Maybe some of them have been thrown into prison for what they believe. But God supplies us with what we need when we want. But we have to trust that He will do that. Just like Elijah trusted when God said, "Go to that stream and I will give you food." Elijah had to trust that He would do that. And we have to trust in Him. And you know, this is where the promises of God really come in together. Again, some of you might be struggling financially in your homes, or you might be going through a really tough time, and it's hard to trust God in those moments, isn't it? But remember the promise that Lydia did not long ago: do not be anxious for anything. And the other promise, which was God is with you wherever you go. We need to trust in those promises to help us in our current situation. And I just want to bring another verse for you that's similar to the one we've looked at in Philippians. And it's from Matthew 6:26. And it says, look at the birds. They do not plant seeds, gather a harvest, or put it in barns. Yet your Father in heaven takes care of them. Aren't you worth much more than the birds? And that's an amazing verse, isn't it? That God looks after all the animals in the world, even the birds in the sky. So how much more is he going to take care of humans who he loves so deeply that he sent his son to die for them on the cross? He loves us so much. And if he takes care of the birds, he's definitely going to take care of us. So let's remember the promises. Don't be anxious. God is with us. God forgives our sin. God is sending Jesus to this earth. And God takes care of us and provides us with our every need. So today, I'm not saying that God will make you a millionaire. I'm not saying that God will give you lots of money. But I am saying that God will provide for you if you trust in him. We hope to see you very soon, and we miss you very, very much. See you later.